Hey guys, so tonight we're going to be talking about Napoleon, and this is kind of a continuation of our video on the French Revolution. You can see our SOLs up here. Napoleon is included in both SOL 6 and SOL 8, so we're going to do almost a mini unit on him. I want to make a quick note about the actual notes you will be taking tonight. This is a video that's not a lot of hard facts. I will be telling you a lot of information that's more like a story. So I've given you a lot of blank space in your notes to take those notes. So tonight you're actually going to have to listen to what I'm saying, maybe jot a couple important things down, but listen to what I'm saying and then maybe pause the video and really fill in those sections about what we've talked about and what was happening during those time periods. So just a heads up on how you'll take your notes tonight. So let's go ahead and get started. So first we're going to talk about the rise of Napoleon. We ended our last video talking about the end of the Reign of Terror when Robespierre is executed. So after he is executed, the French people set up a form of government called the Directory. The Directory is a 5-member executive body, and they rule with a 2-house legislature. So they put 5 men in charge, and then they rule with a 2-house legislature. It's called the Directory, like we said. And the men that were on the Directory, those 5 men, were moderates. They weren't radicals like Robespierre was. They're moderates. They were somewhat corrupt, but that's not necessarily important for what we'll talk about. So they ruled for a period of time from 1795 until 1999. And under the Directory, they assigned this man named Napoleon Bonaparte. They assigned him to go on some military campaigns. And so Napoleon goes and he fights these different military battles, does these different military excursions under the Directory, and he gains himself a lot of popularity and success. He's extremely successful as a military officer. He is a military mastermind. He is really effective and efficient for this time period in the military, and so he gains the support and the respect of the people of France because he is so successful as a military leader. So that's under the Directory. And by 1799, a lot of the French people had lost faith in the Directory. They didn't think that it was really running their government effectively. They didn't think that it was the right form of government that they should have. And so some of these people go to Napoleon and they say, hey, you should take over. You should go and you should take over the government. You should assert your power and you should make a change in the government. Napoleon is kind of power hungry. He's a really small guy. I think a lot of historians will claim that Napoleon had small man syndrome where he's really small. He was 5'3", I believe, and he liked power. He really did. You'll see that in our video. And so he says, sure, I'll do that. So he stages what's called a coup d'etat in French, which means, it means blow to the state. That's what it means translated. So coup d'etat, which is where he takes power. So in 1799, Napoleon stages this coup d'etat. He takes power. He marches his troops onto that legislative body that I talked about that's set up under the Directory. So he marches on his troops on the legislative body, and he makes them take a vote. Most of them flee. A ton of them flee the legislatures. They flee, but the ones that stay, they vote, and they vote to dissolve the Directory. They get rid of the Directory, and in its place, they set up a form of government where there are 3 councils. 3 councils is what they're called. And that's essentially like the Directory, 3 people who are going to be the legislative branch. And Napoleon ensures that he is the first council, which means that he has all the power. Looking back now, we can kind of see where Napoleon at this point even is starting to act more like a dictator. But at this point in time, it's important for you to know, at this point in time, Napoleon has the support of the people, and he is very careful to make sure that to the people, it looks like he is running the government as an elected official who's been elected in a free republic, so that the people's desires, the people's needs, the people's wants are being met by their government. So he was very careful that it looks like he is running as a public official, not a dictator or anything like that. So that is Napoleon's coup d'etat. So now Napoleon is essentially in power at this point. And so let's look at what life looks like under Napoleon's rule. So he does some really good things for France, actually. He does tax reforms, which set up a more efficient way of collecting taxes, and so the government's actually bringing revenue in. Remember, France was in crippling debt at this point, so they were in desperate need of some good economic reforms, and Napoleon's tax reform is effective. He also sets up new banking systems, new national banking systems that help with that economic problem. He dismisses corrupt public officials, so gets rid of the people who are bad in the government or not helping the government run more effectively. He replaces them with people who are going to be true and who are going to help the government really run effectively for the people, and especially how Napoleon wants the government run. He sets up public schools, nationally run schools. That's really important. He's helping to educate people, providing people an outlet for education that's run by the government. And he signs something called the Concordat. This is an agreement between Napoleon or the French government and the Catholic Church. So he says in this document, essentially, he is signing and saying, I recognize France, the government of France recognizes the authority of the Catholic Church. However, the Catholic Church will not have influence over what happens in France. It won't have influence over the politics or the running of the French government. So they're recognizing the church's authority, but the church will not be involved in the actual government or operations of the French government. And this is really important because it wins Napoleon the backing of the Catholic Church. So they have the Catholic Church and the power of the Catholic Church on their side again. And it also appeases a lot of French citizens who wanted to see the church restored to their power. So he makes a lot of people happy, and he gains himself some important support. And lastly, and probably most importantly, he establishes the Napoleonic Code, which is a comprehensive system of laws that he creates and he puts into effect. And the most important thing to understand about the Napoleonic Code is that under the Napoleonic Code, everyone is equal. Every person in France under the Napoleonic Code is equal under the law. Super important. It also is a really strict code of order and authority, so it applies that order and authority to the government that was kind of lacking under the Reign of Terror and Robespierre. Everything was kind of chaotic and no one knew what was going on. So this applies order and authority, and even though everyone is equal, it does put a little bit of a limit on individual rights. Freedom of speech and freedom of press in particular were really controlled by the government, but everyone is equal. That's super important. So those are some of the policies that are implemented under Napoleon's rule. Next, we're going to look at how Napoleon really built an empire. So he was a military man, like we've said. He was a mastermind in military, super smart, really brilliant military leader, and he was really, really successful. Napoleon had some ambitions, and so in 1804, Napoleon crowns himself emperor. Literally. What I mean by that is that at his coronation, the ceremony where he's declared emperor, he walks down the aisle to the Pope, who's holding the crown for him. And traditionally, the Pope would place the crown on the monarch's head, on the ruler's head. Napoleon instead takes the crown out of the Pope's hands and puts it on his own head. This is super important because it shows that Napoleon thinks that he is more powerful than the Catholic Church. He is not going to be given his crown. No one's going to put the crown on his head. He is the one who is crowning himself. He is making himself Emperor of France, so super important. After he does this, he really goes to work on his military campaigns. He aspired to control all of Europe and America. He wanted to expand his empire to control all of Europe and all of America. But very quickly after he has this hope, he realizes that, one, their colony of Haiti, what is modern-day Haiti, had rebelled, and they lost control of Haiti. He sends troops to try to regain control of Haiti, and they are devastated by the locals there who have revolted, and so he gives up on Haiti. He just has it as a lost cause. Second, he, instead of keeping his power in America and keeping control of the territory that France has in America, he sells the Louisiana Purchase to Thomas Jefferson, the president of the United States government at the time. In 1803, he sells the Louisiana Purchase to Thomas Jefferson. So you can see on the map, that's all the area in red. So he gives up all that land. It's a lot of land. It doubles, if not more than doubles, the size of the United States. So it's super important. And he does this logically for a couple of reasons. One, it gives him $15 million into France's coffers, into their government pool of money. So it really helps them financially. Also, this now gives him the money he needs to really pursue his military campaigns in Europe. So too, it allows him to focus on Europe and taking over and making an empire in Europe. And it gives him the money to support that dream financially. So he is successful in Europe in gaining control of some places. He annexed the Netherlands, parts of Italy, and Switzerland. So he gains control of those areas. So moving on to our next slide, because that's a lot of information. So he annexes those areas. Because of his success, there's an alliance against Napoleon built in 1803. So Russia, Austria, Great Britain, and Sweden all get together and they say, we need to put a stop to Napoleon. We're going to band together. We're going to put our forces together, and we're going to try to stop Napoleon. Well, Napoleon has a series of successful military battles after they've made this agreement, and it really makes people worried. And so in 1805, Russia, Austria, and Prussia sign a peace agreement with Russia. And so all these countries have signed this peace agreement with Russia now, and Austria and Prussia in particular become what we'll call puppets of Napoleon. So he doesn't technically consider them part of his empire, but he runs their governments essentially. He is the one who influences their rulers, and they've become his allies in essence. But also in 1805, Napoleon fights the Battle of Trafalgar, which is a major, devastating blow to Napoleon. This is a sea battle, so it's the French Navy fighting against the British Navy, and the British Navy wins. They commandeer or take a lot of the French ships. They defeat the French Navy, and because of this, it causes a couple things. One, it's a devastating blow to Napoleon. It is considered probably a bigger defeat than all of those little battle wins that he had combined. Two, it makes his ambition of using his navy to invade and take over Great Britain impossible. So he has to find another way to take control of Great Britain. And so it's really important. It kind of stops his progress. But between 1807 and 1812, his empire is at its peak. So you can see this map here. The green is the French Empire, the actual French Empire. The green, the lighter green, kind of that mint green, are his satellite countries. So he has control of those countries as well. And then the purple are his allies, like we were talking about before. That he essentially controls what's happening there, but he doesn't, they're not considered part of his empire. Their governments are still in place. So that's the height of Napoleon's empire, and it falls apart. It collapses really quickly after 1812. He's not able to hold on to this empire. But it's important to note that at this point in time, Napoleon's empire is massive. It's one of the largest empires since that of the Romans. So he is actually very successful, at least for a short period of time. So that's the end of tonight's video. Next week, we will pick up with another video on Napoleon and what happens from this point out. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you have a great 3-day weekend, and we will see you on Monday.